And now for the moment we have been waiting for, our Journey of Innovation panel. We're lucky to have with us 4 founders that are building businesses to provide solutions to help build and care for a better world through technology, as well as one very special guest. The solutions they're developing leverage infrastructure digital twins enabled by the iTwin platform. First, we have Aaron Morris, co-founder and CEO of Allvision.
Aaron Morris, again, co-founder and CEO of Allvision. I'm as I say, recovering roboticist. But Allvision, so we're an auditor, if you will. We go out and we find infrastructure. In particular, we make sure that if it exists in digital form, it exists in the real world. And we do that by taking sensor data that you would associate with mobile mappers or autonomous vehicles like LiDAR and imagery, and we mine it with artificial intelligence.
From the Big Apple, we have Arber Ruci, serial entrepreneur and founder of neARabl.
Hello from New York City. Thanks for having me. I'm very excited to be here. My name is Arber Ruci, and I'm the CEO of neARabl. We enable you to see what's near you via augmented reality. We're known for having the world's most accurate indoor navigation system. And in the digital twin space, we specialize in visualization on the ground for construction site managers and real estate developers. Looking forward to this discussion.
Thank you, Arber. And now we're going to shift gears a little bit for our next panelist. Errick Gray is what I call an intrapreneur at Atkins, a global engineering firm.
So my name is Errick Gray. I'm the digital design director for Atkins North America. And as Antonio mentioned, we're one of the largest global engineering consultancies in the world. My role here is to direct and to provide thought leadership around the digital innovation space as we go through this age and this time of design transformation. So really excited to be here and to join this panel today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Errick. Moving to the other side of the Atlantic, we are going to land in Finland, where Panu Pasanen is the CEO and Chief Decarbonization Evangelist for OneClick LCA.
My name is Panu Pasanen. I'm the founder and CEO of OneClick LCA. And our mission is basically to make sure that whenever somebody works on a construction project somewhere, they know what it costs, but they need to know what are the carbon emissions associated with it as well. And on the other hand, how to get them towards net zero. So OneClick is a platform-based business. We are around since quite a while. We are used in about 140 countries today, and we support all kinds of buildings, all kinds of infrastructure, as well as product manufacturing, especially to the sectors mentioned. Glad to be here.
Thank you so much, Panu. Then last but not least, our special guest, we have our own Bentley entrepreneur, Rodrigo Fernandes. He is our internal environmental, social, and government champion at Bentley. So, Rodrigo, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do and who you are at Bentley?
Thank you for this opportunity. So I'm a director of ESTG in Bentley, so empowering sustainable development goals. So I'm leading Bentley Systems sustainability initiatives and driving product strategy in whatever relates to empowering sustainable development goals. So I'm an environmental engineer. I'm passionate about using innovative digital technologies to address climate and environmental challenges. So I'm also an evangelizer on how to transform sustainability challenges into business opportunities and into a purpose-driven strategy. I think that's what moves me on this business.
Thank you, Rodrigo. All right, so every journey has an origin story, and you all got started for some reason. I'm very, very interested in understanding where these ideas came from, how you got started. So I would like, Panu and Rodrigo, why don't you tell us a little bit about this origin story of this solution you've been building on the iTwin platform?
So in the very origin, when we started OneClick LCA for the first time, we struggled with getting people actually being able to choose the best carbon solution. We had no chance to line up the bids, right? Like you couldn't compare the data. They were not comparable and not everybody could afford it. So that's where we started this with. And now we move to this stage where we enter into this cooperation where requirements can be imposed, and they can be imposed by national government on all infrastructure in here, in particular for high speed 2. We have been supporting high speed 2, which is major national infrastructure project in the UK for past 3 years already. And then, of course, as huge assets, we needed to improve on that, on the time it takes basically to identify carbon reductions and to basically make interim accounting on the impacts. And that's where we started working together with Bentley, which is able to power all of this in the format required.
So, Rodrigo.
Yeah, yes. No, yeah, so this is interesting because, well, HS2 project was one of the projects that drove us into this strategy as well, you know. So a few months ago, so we started analyzing the opportunities about environmental technologies and link that and making synergies with our product portfolio. And we were finding that, you know, the market was changing, the consumers, the users, they are changing their decisions on the solutions they adopt. They are more purpose driven, you know. We also see more green procurement, green financing, you know, all these needs for more sustainable infrastructure. And at the same time, we were really finding that, you know, reducing carbon, it's in the early design stages, it's much more efficient than leave it to the next stages. So we were seeing more and more companies, engineering firms, owner operators looking for carbon reporting and carbon accounting. HS2 project was a good example of several companies working on that and trying to address that. So they were already doing that, but some of them, so they were working in with our solutions, with our software, and they were taking several weeks to implement the workflow, you know, to compute carbon footprint based on our infrastructure digital twins, and bringing that, reporting that, and using that on their side. So we should find a way of enabling more efficient quantification of environmental footprints on infrastructure projects. So of course, after finding that and you know, finding One-Click LCA well positioned on this, and also having an iTwin platform as an opportunity to establish this bridge and this strategy, it became evident for us that we should start working together and leveraging iTwin platform for that.
Excellent. That kind of like, you know, theme of a global big problem and efficiencies and all that. It's very relatable to me on what we were discussing, Errick, you know, about what you're trying to do at Atkins. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're doing there and kind of like how, you know, you have maybe similar challenges in what you're doing there?
Efficiency is the key word. So we have all of this data that's available to us nowadays from all of these different silos of information. But how do we bring that together, federate it in an environment that allows our designers to access that and to design alongside of it? So that was one of the principal purposes of our entry into this space. It was to drive efficiency, not only for, you know, my colleagues, our designers, our engineers, but also for our clients. You know, how can we do this better? And also, for a while, digital twins has been a buzzword in the industry, right? Everybody's heard digital twin this, digital twin this, digital twin that. So this gave us a real opportunity to develop real world tools to solve real problems. And I think that's really the impetus for us entering into this space.
Well, digital tools, new tools, you know, maybe we can get the roboticists here, or the recovering roboticists. what he thinks about, you know, new tools in the context of, you know, what you're doing at Allvision.
Well, I love the nature of this question origin story, because every time I hear that, I'm like, I feel like a superhero. I'm like, okay, let's bring out the cape and get ready to go save the world, right? Like, so 2 point, actually the robotics is a good, you know, but early starting point. You know, rewind 20 years ago, I think before really digital twins was like a big thing. And as a roboticist, you realize really early on that if you want to make a machine drive anywhere in the world that, you know, you want it to go, it just doesn't do it like we do, right? It has to have a map. Number one, there has to be a digital representation of the world in order for it to go anywhere. And so that was like the light bulb. I've actually been pursuing like the digital twin ever since. I'm like, because it's like foundational. You really can't have this world without it. So here we are today, and we've got things driving on the roads. We've got 5G implementation. We've got hyper localization. We've got sensors going into locations that are, no longer like, oh, I'll put a tower out in the middle of, on top of some mountain, right? That antenna goes on a street light somewhere in a city. And so we're at the point that the digital twin, it's not like a novelty or an interesting idea. It's a foundational requirement. So that's why we got into the game, is that there's just such a need. Like every time I hear, the next big, tech vision of something, and or to some discussion here, we've got some big problems that we need to solve. And you're not going to be able to solve those with just like, throwing darts out in the world. You actually need intel. And the digital twin really is it's that borderline between what is real and then what is digital. And then in that digital form, you can understand it, you can plan. I mean, again, it's kind of the very context of what a robotics system is. It's sense, plan, act, right? Sense, plan, and then like take action on it. And so for us, it was, and why we like the iTwin platform. It is that sort of interaction, that interface with the rest of the world, allowing us to do what we're really good at, and it is take this sensor data that is now ubiquitous. It's all over the place. That was another thing that's changed here, that it was so hard to get this data. It was so cost prohibitive, so expensive, and now it's everywhere. So now you can take this and we can translate it into these digital forms and start to create the world that we've been talking about for so long.
Fantastic. And it's really interesting when you talk about vision, it's like computer vision for robotics and all these things, and kind of like, finding your way around. Mm-hmm. But I think Arber is going to give us a little bit of a twist in that, because Arber, you're also about vision, but for humans, right?
Yeah. Absolutely, and part of our technology came out of robotics too, so it's really cool to hear that story. Thanks for that. If you want to hear a startup story, now here's a short one for you, right? We're actually a young company, been around for less than a year, but we did spin out of an academic research lab after 5 years of R&D. Our purpose was to create indoor navigation for blind and visually impaired people. Folks that could really use some help getting around, right? When this tech started finally working this past summer, we did our customer discovery, something everyone with cool technology has to do, right? You have to make sure there's product market fit before you enter any market. And for us, unfortunately, there wasn't one, right? End users wanted it, but building management wasn't willing to pay for it. Even when we looked at it from like the ADA compliance angle, we realized that everyone is just okay with Braille, right? Having Braille around. And imagine like if you suddenly lost your vision right now in any infrastructure that you're at, and you would have to rely on Braille for any information you'd get around. But anyways, our aha moment really as a market came when we went from building technology for the blind to answering the question of blind to what, right? So we started talking to firefighters and first responders and construction site managers, and realized that, they too are blind, right? They're blind to safety, blind to information, such as like getting to the nearest exit. So the point is, luckily, it turns out there's other markets for us to build a company on top on. So we're very excited for that. And we're going after real estate and construction, as I mentioned. But the whole point here is, while our business model may have pivoted, our mission hasn't changed much, right? We still want to help visually impaired people get around. To do so, indoor navigation technology needs to be in every building, in every town, in every city, right? It needs to be everywhere. And for us to make this happen, we can do it the way we're doing now, right? Brick by brick, one at a time. And it'll take us maybe 30 to 40 years to get across the US, but we're young, so we'll get it done. Or you can build on top of this digital twin, like the iTwin, and perhaps scale not only your operations, but your whole market from there, right? So we're here really because we see the digital twin as a force multiplier.
Fantastic. And it's interesting because, you actually kind of started us a little bit in the next topic, which is the challenges of getting something started. you brought a good one, right? The product market fit. You start with an idea. This is the market, and so you have to pivot to a whole other approach because, again, unfortunately, maybe the business is not where you thought it was going to be. So let's go back to Panu a little bit, and now with the topic of challenges. So Panu, why don't you tell us a little bit about your challenges and how being able to maybe overcome some of those?
Yeah, sure. So carbon is science, right? I mean, there's nothing invented about global warming or these chemical reactions impact on climate. So all seems simple, globalizable, do it and go after any market. What turns out is that almost every country who moves a bit further in the thinking process establishes their own standards. So they say, by the way, here, the scope for assessment is going to be this. And then they say, and the data you are allowed to use for the assessment is this. And the third, the method is this. So you actually have to change the assessment method, you have to change the data and change the scope, depending on where you work. Okay, it took us a good few years to figure out how to support that. Now we can do that. And high speed 2 in particular, being very particular project, they develop their own method. The most complicated one definitely anywhere in the infrastructure market, which is of course not contributing particularly to the expediency of the work. So, but that being said, by a government body, we are actually not in a position to change it in any way. So we just make do best we can and try to build around solutions around that, including, with automation and that. But the difficult thing is that there's no agreement, and there's not going to be any agreement on how to assess for this kind of things for buildings and infra.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So, thinking about it from this global perspective, and kind of like this global adoption. I don't know, Rodrigo. I mean, we're a global company, Bentley, right? I mean, what are the things, the challenges that you think we had on our side of kind of like the same problem that Panu was?
Yeah, so Panu was mentioning these geographical differences, and this for us is obviously a problem as a global company. So we found, as I was telling you before, so we found that we needed to solve a problem to the market now, not in 2 or 3 years, because our users were demanding and already computing and carbon footprint based on our solutions, but having trouble and difficulties to establish the workflow. But then there are also differences around the world, and this is really difficult for us. How can we address this? So this became also a problem for us. So we started thinking, okay, should we build our own solution for carbon footprint accounting? Should we buy a company that is already doing this? Should we partner? So this was a challenge for us to try to understand. We took some weeks and months to decide on this and to analyze it. So because building for us, it would take too much time based on the challenges, one challenge that Panu already mentioned. So is handling that. We would take a lot of resources would be needed to do this. We would require more domain experts on this area. We would take a lot of time to gain traction and confidence from the market to, around carbon computing and life cycle assessment. So building would not be a right solution for us. Buying a company, we would keep the problem of making the integration with our own solutions. We would need to establish this integration between a company that we would acquire and the integration that we would need for our solutions. So then we start thinking about partnerships and collective action and partnerships. It makes a lot of sense. Work with companies like OneClick LCA. They are already established in the market. They are leaders. They already have an API that is able to exchange with solutions like ours. So why not establish a partnership and building something on a platform like iTwin, where we can establish this link with digital twin solutions. So this was a challenge, but after addressing this and deciding through the partnerships, we really are comfortable on this, and we think this is the right approach.
Awesome, excellent. Yeah, and again, like this ecosystem, right? When we talk about this ecosystem and this innovation ecosystem, You know,
Yes.
it kind of makes you think, and that we're not alone. And Aaron, I mean, like you're trying to, basically build this digital twin of the world and validate it. That's like talking about ecosystem. I'm imagining all kinds of different systems and innovation going in and around this, I don't know, virtual twin of the world, right? So I'm just like to know kind of your take on kind of like your challenges and how you see that.
Well, it's in fact, I think you kind of alluded to it right there in that comment. Like, my problem as an entrepreneur and innovator is like, I see the possibilities. I see the future. Like everything is a new kind of green field in which, like magical things happen. But to me, in that world, like the biggest problem actually, like Errick mentioned it earlier. I'm not sure if you guys caught it. But that was effectively inertia. We've been talking about digital twins forever. And like again, it's a great concept, and you'll talk with, from my perspective, my customers, again, like engineering firms or, asset owners, and you'll talk to them like, hey, you don't have to go out and hire people to run around and, collect and do these audits. Like, there's now a whole sort of software and infrastructure system that you can almost like, connect to it directly, subscribe to it. Isn't that amazing? Just, it's a map and it tells you, no, that's great. Now I'm going to go talk to Bob and get him to walk out, drive down to whatever street and take a picture of it. Like you're missing the point. And so I felt for me that that combination of like, it's been a lot of promise. But we're now at that point where there's a confluence of all things, right? The technology's there, the infrastructure, and I'm talking about again the type of structure like the iTwin platform provides, right? Me as a small startup company, we can't build everything, so we have to rely on an ecosystem of, again, we don't collect data, we partner with people who have data. Right, we don't build the end interface and the tools by which the customers interact. Those already exist. We have a very specific problem that we're solving, and that's what we do. And so that's what we have been up against. But again, I feel it's changing. I feel, in fact, it's a bit of an arms race at this point. Like there are groups out there now that again, historically they've got their ways of doing it, but it's now changing. Because the AI is and again, the tools are so good that you're now being cost competitive. So if you're not doing it, somebody else is, and they're able to like bid more efficiently. They're able to be more accurate. So it's a very interesting time.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's really exciting how it's like very slow forever. When you're innovating,
boom. Yeah,
and suddenly boom. It's like it goes. So one small startup with challenges. Arber, you're another small startup. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your take? What's been your challenge?
Yeah, well, challenges are bread and butter of a startup. I'm pretty sure accounting is on fire right now, but that's besides the story. I would say a big challenge was early on was we thought the digital twin platforms would be a channel for us, right? So once the tech works, you still gotta validate with customers. And it might just be the other way around, don't quote me on that just yet, but it seems like we're becoming a channel for digital twins. And it's really no one's fault. I mean, it's a new market, right? The overall challenge with a new market is always the same. You have to spend a lot of time and money educating your client, right? On a more practical challenge for us was that we had to convince our clients, which were not Bentley clients, to let us test the iTwin in their infrastructure, right? And all of a sudden there's a bigger headcount and there's more insurance. And by the way, for us, it would have never even happened without the help of the iTwin team. So challenges can be overcome with a great team. That'll be my takeaway.
Excellent. Yeah, and then, Errick, going back to you, of course, you are in this 100-year-old engineering company. You don't have challenges, right? You're not a small startup, or do you?
Oh, yes, we do have challenges. And it's just amazing to hear the similarities between the challenges, even though the audience might be slightly different, right? So we talked about clients. Well, my clients are the internal stakeholders. I'm trying to convince our project management teams and our leadership to invest in this grand idea that I've got, that we've been talking about, how we can drive efficiencies here. So we've got the challenge of convincing them that there is true benefit in moving in this direction and making these innovative steps and developing on iTwin. So we spend a lot of time, getting the story right, storyboarding it up front to get that initial buy-in, even from folks that would be the end users. So I know as innovators, I think as Aaron mentioned, hey, we see this stuff, we can see it 10 years off into the future, right? But it's a little more challenging for folks that are boots on the ground. So we have to tell the story right. We have to tell it in ways that they can consume. And after we've built that relationship and that they can see where we're going, then there's the challenge of getting the financial buy-in from leadership to make that investment, because we're talking about time and resources and developers, all of that, this is not free. And so we have that portion of it that we're also challenged with. And then also, as a large company as we are, we do have an army of developers around to do this type of work, but it's the newness of the iTwin platform. They don't have experience in developing in that platform. And so there's a learning curve there. And as Arber mentioned, I think the Bentley team coming in, when we had our hackathon, that was absolutely critical to our success. They were able to help us storyboard and actually plan the things that we could accomplish with the budget and the time that we had in order to prove out a concept that could be digested by our by the team and by the management that would be supporting this effort.
Thank you so much for that, Eric. It's really great for me. Again, I've worked with entrepreneurs for a long time, and I've been an entrepreneur myself. So listening to you all discussing your challenges and kind of like your journeys, and on one side, super diverse, very different applications, very different backgrounds, and geographies. And on the other side is like so many similarities. It's such great, kind of like discussion. I really enjoy always having these conversations. So that I want to call for one last quick thing from all of you, and it's a lightning round of what's next. So 30 seconds, right? You guys are going to tell me what you think is next. So Errick, why don't you take it from there?
I think one of the biggest things that is ahead of us is our clients' maturity around expecting this level of innovation. I think we're going to see that explode. We're going to see them require this in their proposals and their requests for proposals, and from us as the consultant community to provide this level of innovation on the projects that we're pursuing. We're going to have to answer these questions about how we are able to use all of these tools that are out there in order to help them realize their future visions. That's number one. I think that's definitely something that you're going to see. Also, the second part of that is validation from our side, right? So we talk about these great tools. Sometimes these tools are a little bit young, right? And it takes a little while for us to build that database of trustworthy AI information and background there. So I think you're going to see that grow and that maturity come, which will also build the confidence of our clients in what we're able to provide.
Awesome.
30 seconds?
Yeah, I think so. Aaron, yours.
Eric, you stole my thunder, man. Like that was what I was gonna say. All right, well, I want to go left field and go metaverse, right? Like we're talking about digital twins, the digital versions of reality. Where and everybody else is talking about the metaverse. These things should come together. I don't have a plan. I'm just saying it seems like a good idea. Peanut butter and jelly, right? Come on.
Awesome. I'm with you. I'm there with you in the metaverse. Panu.
Yeah, so sounds very familiar. So we are in the carbon lifecycle assessment market. We are at a point where this is becoming mandatory, either by client wish or regulations. So scaling up, of course, is critical. And in that sense, removing all the friction and maximizing the efficiency, we still have a lot of room there. Mainly also because everybody does it different way. So you can't optimize 400 people who do things different way, the same way. So that's just putting a bit of spice into the equation, but we'll get there.
All right, Rodrigo.
Okay, so you can imagine I'm quite excited by by this, by including carbon as part of the strategy in construction. And so as an environmental engineer, I think that putting sustainability in business strategy is really exciting for us, in my personal view. I do think, and from the company side, I do think in the next few years we will see, and months, we will see much more partners involved in iTwin platform for sustainability. So I really see this collective action happening, and I'm quite excited for it once again. And one thing that I think is really important for us in this carbon service is moving from reporting to full optimization. You know, things like more flexible carbon insights, like on-the-fly carbon information based on what-if scenarios, design modifications, and better visualization with 3D and immersive visualization of you know, augmented reality, virtual reality, where we can visualize heat maps for carbon reduction opportunities. So there's a whole world of aspects of innovation that can be put to increase the efficiency around this. And so it's really thrilling for us.
Sounds like an ESG metaverse for me. I don't know. What do you think, Aaron? Ever take us to the finish.
Oh my God, what's next? I mean, I'm lucky that I got to hear everyone else. I would say more of this, right? So creating best practices, that's an obvious one. And we got to help educate not only our clients, but even new startups that are entering this space, right? I think it's on us that are early to make it easier for the next generation that's coming here, right? We got to make the pie bigger, and there's a bunch of tactics that help get there. If we got to contribute to the iTwin code, let's do that. If there's a bunch of things, right? On the more actionable, what's next? You know, after hearing everyone here, I want to work with all of you, right? The more I listen to each one of you, you know, Errick, what are you doing in the next couple of weeks, buddy? Like, Aaron, how you doing?
Look me up.
No, honestly, I realized that I think the more I listen to y'all, is I think we might be the only ones that can solve each other's challenges. So I wanted to take it away with thank you, right? Thanks for bringing us together here, and thanks for making this happen.
Awesome. Well, great. You always set us up perfectly, Arber, so thank you so much. So look, first of all, I want to go back to what Sam said at the very beginning of this event. Again, we are trying to build this ecosystem, and it's all about not just the technology, the iTwin platform, but it's all these support services that he and his group are now officially doing, but they were been doing all along, hackathons and other things. But from my vantage point, it's about these kinds of conversations happening between us, so that we can cross-pollinate, we can, play off of each other, we can help each other out. Ultimately, none of us can do this alone. I mean, I think Rodrigo, you said it really well. Many of you also, talked about this point in having this opportunity, these conversations, to me, is really what truly the iTwin platform vision at a higher level is all about. So again, thank you guys for hosting our first Journey of Innovation panel. I think we're going to have a lot more of this, because I got a lot of value and I enjoyed it a lot. So again, thank you very much for coming and for sharing all your wisdom with us.